Thank you, Rita, for that detailed agenda of the day, and more of those stories will be developed in our subsequent newscast. We begin the news from the far north region, where the population has been commending the effort of the defense forces in the region and their constant support in the domains of health, education, and particularly security. The people of the region once again pledge their continuous support in assisting the military in the fight against the Boko Haram insurgency in the far north region. Teke Gilos gives us more from the far north region in Marwa.
There are more than 1,000 vigilante groups that have been helping Cameroonian defense forces to identify and knock out Boko Haram suicide bombers in the far north region. But the people are also very conscious that these vigilante groups lack the means to effectively ensure security and protect the population from sporadic attacks. That explains why they are persistently looking up to the military to protect everyone. Small wonder these defense forces are constantly present in communities facing the Boko Haram scourge in Mayo Chanaga, Mayo Sava, and the Logon and Shari divisions to reassure the population that the government is bent at providing security to all her citizens. Beyond the issue of security, the defense forces are also present in health, providing quality health care to the population, not only to victims of the Boko Haram attacks, but also to people suffering from common illnesses and sometimes with little or no access to public health facilities.
Le volet santé.
Our health intervention is in three phases. Firstly, we have free consultation and treatment to the population living in these areas. Secondly, health campaigns, and finally, treatment of civilians wounded in Boko Haram attacks.
Et la prise en charge des blessés civils pendant les attaques de Boko Haram.
We are very happy that the administration is thinking about us. We are happy for what we have received, and we are very proud.
Education is also another sector where the inhabitants of the far north region have found in the army a people-friendly and development-oriented force. Actions in this sphere are mostly in the rehabilitation of schools, to the provision of didactic materials, benches, potable water, and food items, for which some communities are also daily beneficiaries.
And we continue talking about security. To say over the past 3 years, Cameroon has been a victim of the brutal jihadist terror group Boko Haram. The conflict has killed over 2,000 people, maimed many more, and triggered a humanitarian crisis affecting over 2 million people. The war has consumed close to 2% of the national gross domestic product, slowing down the economy considerably. Fonka Muta Bobena attempts to evaluate the cost of the war.
At least 2,000 and counting. This is the number of Cameroonians, civilian and military, who now lie in cemeteries across the country, killed by ruthless Boko Haram militants. Over 200,000 have been displaced, and over 80,000 Nigerian refugees fleeing the crisis have found shelter in Cameroon. Earlier this year, UN agencies warned that 1.8 million people are faced with food insecurity in Cameroon, 6 million threatened by epidemics, while nearly 200,000 children were already malnourished or would soon become. Beyond this snapshot of the humanitarian cost of the conflict, the economy of the country has slowed down by an estimated 2% of the gross domestic product, says the IMF. Increased military spending for Operations Alpha, Emergence 4 and the Multinational Joint Task Force are the visible money drainers. But there is more to this. Cameroon records a loss of approximately 340 billion CFA francs yearly since the start of the conflict. Its most profitable custom posts were shut down for a couple of years. Borderline highways deserted. Cross-border trade with Nigeria and Chad shriveled, giving rise to dangerous trafficking of mainly sugar and fuel. Road construction, health, water and sanitation projects were all stalled. The once flourishing tourism industry of the far north region is on its knees, while the region's rich pastoral and agricultural fields have emptied. Cereal production, for example, has dropped by 200,000 tons. Cameroon continues to pay a heavy price on multiple fronts in this struggle against terrorism.
Away from the struggle against terrorism, let's talk conflict within the church. The call for reconciliation has been reiterated at the Église Évangélique du Cameroun, the EEC, as the Secretary General of the church, Reverend Philippe Nguete, commissioned newly elected members of the National Executive Bureau. The call follows a religious crisis rocking the church since the election of Reverend Pastor Jean-Samuel Ije Toya at the helm of the EEC. Constantine Baum revisits the conflicts and how it has deepened over the years.
The leadership crisis that has plunged Église Évangélique du Cameroun into a legal battle continue to catch the attention of many newspapers in Cameroon. According to some papers, the crisis transcends religious matters. The papers could be correct because the legal scuffle has reignited the Bamileke-Douala rivalry. These two ethnic groups that are condemned to live together have been flexing their muscles in the religious domain precisely over the presidency of EEC. Going down memory lane, the church, because of its composition made up of the Bamuns, Bamilekis and Sawas, had a gentleman agreement that helped in its management since 1957. This agreement today has been absolved by the constitution of the church.
The rule inside the church is on the basis of a constitution, and we have also a gentleman agreement which helped the leaders to solve some problems when they happen. And that is from 1957 up to 2009.
According to some newspapers' reports, the Doualas wanted one of theirs, Reverend Pastor Richard Prezo Mongoli, to replace Reverend Pastor Isaac Batome Henga as president of the church. The papers further say Reverend Henga, on his part, favored Reverend Pastor Jean-Samuel Toya, another Bamileke, as his successor. This, the papers claim, was to maintain the Bamileke leadership in the church, which the Doualas believe that the Bamilekis for the past 15 years have been at the helm, and it was time for a Sawa to rule. After the Ngaoundéré elections that witnessed the triumph of Reverend Toya over Mongoli, things never remained the same as the new church leadership was dragged to court and accused of electoral fraud. The crisis has brought in division among the Christians, with some boycotting the EEC, but the Secretary General says the doors for reconciliation are wide open.
In view to remain united in the church, we have decided to make a further effort, more effort, in view to dialogue.
The problem, which was an internal affair of the church, is no more a religious crisis, as other persons are now exploiting it, turning it into a socio-political crisis between tribes that the word of God has cemented, making them becoming one.
And away from conflicts, let's talk diplomacy and cooperation at the African level now. The Ivorian Minister of Employment and Social Security, Jean-Paul Kwasi, has entered the second day of his 3-day working visit to Cameroon. Upon arrival yesterday, he was received in audience in 2 separate audiences by the Minister of Labour and Social Security, Grégoire Owona, and his counterpart of Employment and Vocational Training, Zachary Perevet. Discussions during both audiences focused on improving the quality of training in order to facilitate after-school employment. Quinta Rita Edang trailed the visiting minister and compiled the following report.
Ensuring an adequate management of state agents, civil servants, and workers of the private sector through the promotion of social dialogue and the institution of a proper social security system are some of the major preoccupations of the Ministry of Labour and Social Security. It is within this framework that Minister Grégoire Owona and the visiting Ivorian Minister of Employment and Social Security, Jean-Paul Kwasi, discuss ways of improving on the working climate and the creation of decent jobs as a means to optimize output, thereby boosting economic growth. The second part of Minister Jean-Paul Kwasi's day featured an audience with Cameroon's Minister of Employment and Vocational Training, Zachary Perevet. The officials hailed the excellent cooperation ties between Cameroon and Côte d'Ivoire, with both countries facing similar challenges in the field of youth unemployment, the need to enrich training packages promote self-employment and match professional training programs to the needs of the job market also came under scrutiny.
And we take this foreign news brief to say a key official of the IT unit of the Election Commission in Kenya has been found dead in his home. His death comes on the eve of presidential elections in that country that's scheduled for August 8th. The elections will be marked by stiff competition between the incumbent President Uhuru Kenyatta and long-term rival Raila Odinga. And in sport, we begin our series on the Female Afro Basketball Championship that kicks off on the 18th of August in Bamako, Mali. Cameroon will be participating, and today we paint a portrait of one of the key players in the Cameroonian squad, Priscilla Law Bianja. The 28-year-old is the captain of the team and was vice champion of Africa. Patricia Leba-Metuksum met with the vice champion and in her training camp and put together the following report.
Priscilla Law Biaja, captain of the basketball Lionesses, began her career in the United States of America. A key figure in the Lionesses den, Priscilla, who is already in camp training for the Afro Basketball Tournament for Mali this year, is aiming for nothing less than gold.
Is have a good performance. Hopefully win a medal, but really have a good performance. Do better than we did 2 years ago.
Barely 17 days to the competition, she describes the ambience that reigns in the den as fun.
The shorter the team, I think the more tough is the training, but because it's so much, it's like a good vibe between us girls, so I think it's a lot of fun.
The vice champion of Africa, eliminated at the 2016 pre-Olympics in France, already has a fixed objective for the 5th Afro Basketball.
It's a great opportunity to actually wear green, red, and yellow, so we have to really let them know it's okay. Don't think about what happened 2 years ago, just look forward, and hopefully they won't have to go through that again.
Priscilla Law Biacha, who counts 4 Afro Basketball, is married and mother of 1 to whom she wishes to transfer her love for basketball.
I have to show that the portrait of Priscilla Law Bianja, captain of the Cameroon basketball team in the female category, that will put an end to this edition of the 7 a.m. newscast on the CRTV. But the next newscast comes up at 8 a.m. with Martin Noel Dengue. There will be more developments of the content we produce to you in our agenda of the day. Stay tuned to CRTV. We leave you now in the company of Bonjour Cameroon. And what is coming up next is the press review, and you've also been discovering the Pont Vert bridge in the far north regional capital, Maroua. And today, the talking point on the program, Bonjour Cameroon, is breastfeeding. And this is the breastfeeding week. And I would like to ask my presenter here, they say breastfeeding should be for at least 6 months. What do you think about that?
Oui, je suis parfaitement d'accord. Et d'ailleurs, il y en a qui conseillent même que c'est important d'aller même peut-être jusqu'au-delà même de 6 mois. Parce que la meilleure alimentation pour un enfant, pour un bébé, reste et demeure l'allaitement maternel.
And let me also remind you that in most of our communities, especially in our rural communities, our mothers respect the 6 months deadline and even go up to sometimes up to a year.
Parfois, parfois ça arrive qu'elles aillent même jusqu'au-delà de ces 6 mois prescrits par l'Organisation mondiale de la santé. Merci donc très cher Elvis Teke. Le rendez-vous est pris pour vendredi.
Next Friday, and
voilà.
We'll be here again tomorrow at same time at 7 a.m. for the news with the Hello Cameroon crew.
Merci très cher. On se donne donc rendez-vous.